In February, at Padmaloka Retreat Centre, Sangharakshita attended a men's event for the first time in a number of years. In the talk he delivered there, he spoke about the recent deterioration of his eyesight.
When I was in Italy, when I was on the Tuscany reunion retreat, I started having serious trouble with my eyesight, as a result of which I can no longer read or write. Have to be read to and have to dictate if I want to write anything. So that has made quite a big practical difference in my life. But I noticed that people, some of them, have spoken and also written about my having suffered a very serious loss in as much as I can no longer read and write, especially in as much as I can no longer read. And sometimes they speak of that as though I must be suffering a lot, as though I'm sort of itching to grab hold of a book and devour it. And since I can no longer do that, well, Bhante must be really suffering. But I can assure you that he isn't like that at all. In fact, I think I can say that from even the very first day that I suffered this loss of eyesight, I think I could almost say I didn't regret not being able to read. After all, I've read so much in the course of my life. And I couldn't help thinking sometimes, well, maybe Mother Nature is giving me a hint and saying, look here, Sangharakshita, you've read so much since you were a boy. It's about time you stopped. It's about time you reflected more. So I've sort of taken the hint. And to be quite frank, I'm quite happy to take the hint and reflect more. So I have been, for the last 6 months and more, reflecting, perhaps, more than I used to, and I have found it very interesting. I think I can say that there probably hasn't been as much change to my diary as one might have expected. But of course, when I do speak nowadays, it has to be entirely extempore. I can't speak from notes, I can't read a paper or anything of that sort. I haven't found that the deterioration of my sight has placed very many practical limitations on the life that I normally lead. I can't sort of read and write, of course, but that's just one thing. People do read to me. People take dictation. People go for walks with me. And I don't have any problem getting around the flat, for instance, or around the house. Just read those last 2 sentences.
It was not easy for anybody to see what the next stage in my restitution should be.
Bhante has, however, continued to work on his memoirs.
I'd read on from there what we did have.
One thing was clear.
Perhaps there should be one thing, however, was clear. It was clear that there really would have to be a new Buddhist movement in England. Not being able to look over what I've written, when I'm dictating, does make life rather difficult, because I have to ask the person who is taking the dictation to read back, and sometimes I have to do that 5 or 6 times before I really am able to get things right.
Made it difficult for the facts to be considered.
I suppose I accepted sort of philosophically, well, it is age-related. The condition is called, age-related macular degeneration, and I'm getting on for 77, so one just has to accept such things. It's part of the overall aging process. There's nothing very surprising about it at all. Just like, losing one's hair, or one's hair turning grey, or one not being able to run and jump as before. There's nothing very surprising, so one shouldn't be surprised. One mustn't take these things too seriously. In a way, loss of eyesight, even partial loss of eyesight, is a serious matter. But then when one considers that, throughout my life I've been reasonably healthy, I've had no major suffering. And when I consider that there are people who, completely blind, people who go deaf, people who lost the use of their limbs, people who are in constant pain. So my loss, seems, quite minor in comparison with theirs. So one can afford to take it not very seriously, and even, make a joke about it. I think it would be a laughable matter if one did take it seriously. I suppose I could say that, I am supposed to be a Buddhist after all, and I am supposed to have practiced it for about 60 years, so it should have made some impression by this time. But by now, one shouldn't be surprised that the Dharma does work. I think that probably puts the matter in a nutshell. Perhaps people are surprised that the Dharma works because perhaps their faith in the Dharma isn't really very deep. If your faith in the Dharma is deep, you're not surprised that it works when you practice it, and especially if you practice it for a number of years. There are people, in the movement, in the order that I've known for 25, even 30 years, and I've seen great changes in their lives. I've seen that the Dharma does work. So it's not surprising that it should have worked for me as well as for others.